There's a structure that keeps coming up. 64 states, a binary, 6 bits. It's in the I Ching, mapped 3,000 years ago, and it's in the genetic code, 64 codons mapping the protein alphabet. And in 1982, John Hopfield used the same architecture to build the first neural network that could store and retrieve memory. He shared the Nobel Prize for it in 2024. So here we have different traditions, centuries apart, with the same structural object. A binary attractor system with 64 stable states. And there's a number underneath 64, the number that determines how the system differentiates one configuration from another. 384, which is each of the 6 lines of the 64 hexagrams. This video is about that architecture, where it comes from, what it does, and one place it shows up that you might not expect. To understand what this architecture is doing, we need to go back nearly 100 years. Not to China this time, like we did in my last video, but to a German university laboratory in the 1920s, to a young physicist named Ernst Ising, who was studying the interior of metals at the atomic level. Each atom could only do one of two things, either point up or point down. It was a binary choice at the smallest scale of matter. What fascinated Ising was what happened when you connected individual atoms. Each atom influenced its neighboring atom, and some connections pulled hard while others barely registered. When he let the whole system evolve, something emerged that no single atom could produce on its own. A lattice would settle into stable configurations, low energy states where the system stopped shifting and actually held still. Valleys emerged in an energy landscape, and the atoms weren't aiming at anything anymore. They began doing what the geometry permitted. Ising published his model. It described magnets and metals and thermal equilibrium. And for decades, that's where it stayed. And nobody was thinking about brains yet. But if a model is good, it typically doesn't stay where you put it. And in 1947, a physicist named William Little asked, what if Ising's binary lattice went beyond magnets and described neurons in the mind? 8 years later, in 1982, John Hopfield completed this picture. A single layer of neurons, fully connected, every neuron talking to every other neuron, and each neuron a binary that turned on or off. He defined an energy function over the entire system and proved mathematically that the network would always evolve toward low energy states, stable configurations, attractors, aka memories. His key insight was that memories are stored as patterns across the whole entire network rather than in an individual neuron. And the memory is in the configuration. Which neurons are on, which are off, and this goes across the entire system. So the binary state serves as a vector with a string of ones and zeros that is the memory itself. If you give the network a partial input, a fragment, a blur, a half-remembered face, the system in many ways rolls downhill. It falls into the nearest valley and the nearest stored memory pattern, and the memory completes itself. It's not as effortful as searching memory banks for the answer. And so in 2024, John Hopfield shared the Nobel Prize in Physics with Geoffrey Hinton. The physics of magnets had become the physics of memory. and they both rely on binary units, weighted connections, energy landscapes, stable states. You can store this in your memory. Because now we're going back to the I Ching, the mathematics of it, which are each hexagram is 6 lines, and each line is either yin or yang, broken or solid, 0 or 1. 6 binary positions here, 2 to the 6th power, 64 possible hexagrams. But notice what a hexagram actually is. It's a specific configuration and a specific pattern of 6 binary choices stacked on top of one another. Hexagram 1, for example, is comprised of all yang lines, all ones, 6 ones, 6 solids. Hexagram 2, on the other hand, is all yin, 6 broken lines, 6 zeros. The identity of the hexagram is its binary configuration. The pattern is, or the pattern holds this meaning. And this is exactly how a Hopfield network stores a memory. A binary state vector, a specific pattern of ones and zeros, and the pattern itself is the living thing. Now let's go one level deeper. Each hexagram has the 6 lines that we now know, and each line carries its own meaning, its own commentary, if you will. King Wen named these hexagrams, and the Duke of Zhou went further and interpreted each of their individual lines. 6 lines per hexagram, 64 hexagrams, gives us 384 individual lines. 384 distinct expressions of the binary field. This creates a nested dynamic system, and the binary logic generates 64 identities. So the 64 identities, within each identity, 6 layers of differentiation. The 64 tells you what, and the 384 tells you how. This is important because this is precisely the architecture a system called the Human Design System inherits. The Human Design bodygraph has 64 gates. Each gate corresponds to one hexagram, and each gate is one specific binary configuration. That's the identity layer. But your design doesn't just activate gates. For each gate, a specific line of the 384 is also activated. Gate 41 at line 2 is a different expression than gate 41 at line 5. Both carry gate 41 identity, the same hexagram, and the same archetype. But the line determines how that identity moves through you specifically. The line is where a differentiated archetype actually lives. So 64 gates, 6 line each, 384 unique activations. That is what true resolution of the system looks like. Binary logic generates 64 identities, and the bodygraph placement creates relational structure, and the whole thing produces a unique energetic landscape. Your landscape. So what happens when you lay this architecture on top of Hopfields? In a Hopfield network, you have neurons, binary units that are on or off. In the bodygraph, you have gates, each one a binary configuration, activated on or receptive off. The gate can be thought of as the neuron, but it's a richer neuron than Hopfield imagined. The identity says what it processes, and the line says how. In a Hopfield network, you have weighted connections. In the bodygraph, you have channels. An activated channel is a strong weight. and a hanging gate is a weak weight. Here, the sensitivity exists and the filter is there, but these signals don't complete the circuit. They are firing inconsistently, easily drowned out by stronger connections nearby. In a Hopfield network, the system settles into low energy configurations, aka stable states, attractor basins. In the bodygraph, you have defined centers, and a defined center is a valley in your energy landscape, a configuration your system reliably returns to. So that was all a recap from one of my previous videos. In a Hopfield network, you give the system a partial input and it completes the pattern. It rolls downhill into a near stored memory. The bodygraph does this constantly. You walk into a room with all of your bright aura. The auric landscapes around you mingle into yours. Your system rolls towards configurations that aren't natively your own anymore. And your own inner authority, navigational processing, which I explain in another video. That is the navigation signal back to the valleys that are natively yours. None of this requires the system to actually be aiming at anything because the attractors aren't goals the bodygraph pursues. They're merely what the geometry permits. So water finds its level. The bodygraph finds yours. You may be asking why any of this matters. If this correspondence holds, and I believe that structurally it does, then human design explains more than just a typological personality system. And it describes more than something spiritual that's cloaked with modern language. What if it is a description of one's individual informational architecture, the specific topology of your energy landscape, where the arrangement of attractors and flat regions and weighted connections make your processing of the world different from the person beside you? And we can see this visually. This landscape tells you where things settle when nothing forces them elsewhere. No other auras, nothing extraterrestrial. And it describes how two people have different landscapes, different stable states, different susceptibilities, and different valleys. And the practices that human design recommends, which are following your inner authority, how to identify your own inner authority, honoring that, tracking the not self themes, which I explain in my conditioning video. These are all navigation protocols fitted to specific attractor topologies. This is not cookie cutter kind of self-help. So in this video, we explained 64 binary states, 6 bits, 384 points of differentiation. Whether you call them hexagrams or codons or memories or gates, their architecture is the common denominator. These systems settle where geometry permits. And the human design system is one sophisticated map of that territory. There are others. Now, the I Ching is much older, and Hopfield's is more formal. Molecular biology is more universal. The vocabulary you use to read it is totally up to you, but I think the act of the reading itself may be what matters